I remember that night like it's burned into the back of my mind. Everything felt off the moment I stepped outside, even though nothing looked strange at first. It was late, way past the time kids stopped trick-or-treating, and the whole street had gone quiet in that heavy, uncomfortable way that made every sound feel too sharp. Halloween decorations were still hanging everywhere, but in the dark they looked different. Not fun, not silly, just wrong, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. I wasn't supposed to be out that late, but I had gotten a message that pulled me out of the house. A simple text, no name, just, come outside. I need to talk. I thought it was my friend messing around, so I didn't think much of it. But the second I stepped onto the sidewalk, I knew it wasn't him. Something about the night felt heavier than usual, the air colder in a way that didn't match the weather. Every house on the street was dark except for one porch light flickering at the far end, like it was struggling to stay alive. I kept checking over my shoulder, even though I didn't hear anything. That's what bothered me, there was nothing. No cars, no wind, not even the faint sound of someone's TV from a window. Just that weird empty silence. I started walking anyway, following the sidewalk like some part of me already knew where I was supposed to go, even if I didn't want to admit it. My phone buzzed again. One more message, hurry. I saw what you did. My stomach dropped. I didn't know who sent it or what they thought I did, but suddenly the quiet street didn't feel empty anymore. It felt watched, like someone was somewhere close, waiting for me to realize I wasn't out there alone. My first instinct was to turn around and go back home, but the message had already grabbed something inside me. I kept walking, pretending it was nothing, pretending I wasn't starting to feel that cold rush of nerves spreading through my chest. I typed back, asking who it was, but the message stayed undelivered. No reply. My hands felt sweaty around the phone, and I kept rubbing my palm on my jeans like it would somehow calm me down. Halfway down the street, I noticed something strange. A house on my left had its front door cracked open. Not wide, just enough to see darkness inside. I knew the people who lived there. They were the kind who locked everything, even in the middle of the day. Seeing their door open on a night like this made my stomach twist. I slowed down without even thinking. Part of me wanted to call out, but the silence around me felt too thick, like my voice wouldn't go anywhere. Another message buzzed in my hand. Don't go near the house. Just keep walking. It felt like ice slid down my spine. Whoever it was, they could see me. I spun around, scanning the yards, the windows, the shadows behind the hedges. Nothing moved, but the feeling of being watched was so strong it made the hairs on the back of my neck lift. I started walking again, faster this time, trying to keep my breathing steady. I didn't understand why I was listening, but something about the message felt serious enough that I didn't want to test it. As I got closer to the end of the street, that flickering porch light kept pulling my eyes. It was the only thing that wasn't completely dark, and it made the whole house look abandoned, even though I knew someone lived there. A guy named Reed, someone I used to hang out with before things got weird between us. We hadn't spoken in months, not since that fight we had where he accused me of lying about something I didn't even understand. My phone buzzed again. Almost there. My chest tightened. I stopped walking. I didn't want to go any closer to Reed's place. He wasn't the type to play a prank like this. He always took things too far, always acted like everyone was against him. I remembered the way he used to stare when he got angry, like he was trying to decide whether or not to say something he'd regret. A faint sound broke the silence behind me, a soft click, like a door shutting slowly. I turned around fast, but the street looked the same. Dark. Still. Empty. But that sound wasn't my imagination. Someone else was out here. Someone who didn't want to be seen. My heart started pounding harder, and I picked up my pace, almost jogging now. Every step felt heavier, like the night was trying to trap me in place. Another message appeared. You shouldn't have lied. I'm giving you one chance to fix it. I stopped in the middle of the road, breathing hard, staring at the glowing screen. I hadn't lied about anything. Not to Reed. Not to anyone. But whoever was messaging me seemed so sure, like they knew something I didn't. And then, just as I lowered the phone, I noticed something else, something I should have seen earlier. A figure standing near the edge of Reed's yard. Not moving. Not hiding. Just watch me. The figure didn't move at first. It just stood there, barely lit by the weak porch light, its shape blending into the shadows. I couldn't see a face, but something about the way they held their shoulders, too still, too focused, made my chest tighten. I took a step back without meaning to. My breath felt trapped in my throat. My phone buzzed again, and the vibration almost slipped it out of my hand. Don't run. Just come here. Arm and motioned slowly, like it already knew which way I would move. That small gesture, so casual, so sure, hit me harder than anything. They weren't guessing where I'd go. They expected it. They'd planned it. I managed to whisper, "Reed," but the voice that answered wasn't his. Come here. Calm. Low. Controlled. A voice that knew me. A voice that used to sound friendly. Then the porch light flickered one last time and died, plunging everything into darkness. Something snapped inside me. I turned and ran. My feet hit the pavement hard, echoing through the empty street. I didn't care about the noise. All I cared about was getting away from whoever was behind me. But after only a few steps, another voice came from somewhere ahead, too close, too sudden. Are you going somewhere? I froze, my body locking up before my mind caught up. A second figure stood near the opposite sidewalk, stepping out from behind a parked car. My heart lurched. It wasn't random. They had waited for me to panic. They wanted me trapped. My phone buzzed again in my hand, but I couldn't look at it. I couldn't think. The figure from Reed's yard started walking toward me, steady and unhurried. The other one approached from the front, blocking the street. My throat felt raw. What do you want? The one behind me answered, the truth. But I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know what they thought I'd done. And that was the moment I understood something far worse. This wasn't about what I did. This was about what someone told them I did. Someone I trusted. Someone who knew exactly how to get me here. Someone who wanted me scared, cornered, alone. I backed away from both of them until my heels slipped on the edge of the curb. My whole body felt shaky, like my legs were barely listening to me. I didn't wait for them to speak again. I darted toward the narrow walkway between two houses, squeezing through the gap, so fast the rough brick scraped my arm. One of them lunged after me. I heard their shoes hit the pavement, but I didn't look back. I kept running until I reached the backyard fence and climbed it, almost falling when my foot caught the top. When I dropped to the other side, my knees buckled. I tasted metal in my mouth, that sharp panic taste that hits when your body is too terrified to think. I fumbled for my phone, but it slipped from my hand and hit the grass. The screen lit up on impact. Another message. You can't hide forever. I grabbed the phone and kept moving, cutting through yards and stumbling over garden tools and toys left out from earlier that day. Halloween decorations brushed against my face, plastic webs, hanging ghosts, bright orange lights, and every touch made me jump. My breathing turned ragged. My chest hurts. My eyes kept stinging, but I wasn't sure if it was sweat or tears. By the time I reached my own street from the back way, the two figures were gone. Or maybe they were hiding, watching, waiting. Every window looked darker than usual, every yard too quiet. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I walked past it and kept going until I reached the main road with traffic and people and noise. Anything that didn't feel like a trap. Even with cars rushing by and lights everywhere, the fear didn't fade. It sat heavy in my chest, tightening every time my phone buzzed. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Someone had set me up. Someone close. And whoever those people were, they weren't finished with me yet. Sometimes I replay that night in my head, trying to make sense of what really happened. I keep asking myself if I missed something, some warning sign, some shift in someone's behavior, some look that should have told me they were turning on me. But the more I think about it, the more I realize how easy it is for someone to twist your life with just a few words sent to the wrong people. How fast trust can break down when you don't even know who's speaking for you or against you. I never found out who those two were or what lie they were told. I never got another message from that number, but sometimes I get this strange feeling when I'm outside at night, like a signal drifting through the air directed at me. A reminder. I don't know why they stopped. I don't know why they didn't chase me further. The scariest part is that they acted like they knew me. Like they had spent enough time watching to understand exactly how I would react. Exactly where I would run. For weeks after, I barely slept. Every small noise sounded like footsteps. Every car slowing down felt like someone checking on me. I kept thinking about the people in my life. Friends, old friends, people I thought would never have a reason to hurt me. And then I realized something that still bothers me more than anything else. It doesn't take an enemy to destroy you. It just takes someone who decides their version of the truth matters more than yours. I wish I could say I'm over it, but I'm not. A part of me is still stuck on that street, staring into the dark, waiting for a face that never showed. And some nights, when everything goes quiet and the air feels too still, I swear I can hear my phone buzzing, even when it isn't. Like the conversation never really ended. Like they're still out there, waiting for me to slip up, waiting for the perfect moment to start it all again. I still remember the way the hallway looked that night. Too dark, too narrow, like it was slowly closing in on me. The Halloween decorations we hung earlier were still taped to the walls, but in the quiet, they didn't look fun anymore. The plastic skeleton near the kitchen kept shifting slightly whenever the air moved, making this soft tapping sound that blended with the silence. It felt like the whole apartment was holding its breath. I wasn't even supposed to be home alone. My roommate, Liam, told me he'd be back before sunset. He'd been weird all week, quiet, distracted, always checking his phone. And when he left that afternoon, he didn't even tell me where he was going. Just said he needed some air. I didn't think anything of it then. But by the time the sky turned black and the streets outside went quiet, that uneasy feeling started to creep in. The kind that crawls up your spine before you even realize something's wrong. It started with a single sound. A soft, slow creak coming from Liam's room. At first, I thought maybe he'd come back while I was in the shower. But when I called out his name, the apartment stayed silent. I checked my phone, no messages, no missed calls. I tried to convince myself it was just the building settling, but the creak came again, longer this time, almost like someone shifting their weight on the floorboards. My hands felt cold as I walked toward his room. The hallway seemed darker than usual, even with the small lamp glowing in the corner. I reached for his doorknob, hesitated, then pushed the door open just enough to see inside. The room was empty, but the window, one he always kept locked, was open. Curtains swaying, cold air drifting in, and sitting on his bed was his phone. Screen lit. A message is still open. A message from an unknown number that simply said, "He won't tell the truth. Will you?" I picked up Liam's phone with this uneasy feeling spreading through my stomach. The message was recent, sent only a few minutes earlier. I checked the rest of the conversation, but the history was wiped clean. Just that one message staring back at me like it was waiting for a reaction. The window rattled softly behind me, and for a second, I imagined someone standing outside in the dark, watching the curtains move. I tried calling Liam, but his phone stayed on the bed. That bothered me more than the open window. He never went anywhere without it. Ever. I walked over and closed the window, locking it out of instinct, but the lock felt loose, like it had been messed with. When I turned away, I noticed something else, a faint footprint on the wooden floor near the dresser. It wasn't Liam's. He wore big sneakers that left wide marks. This print was narrow, almost careful, like the person had tried not to be seen. A dull thump echoed from the living room. I jumped. My pulse kicked up hard. It was the kind of sound a heavy book or a box would make if it fell over. I walked back down the hallway, every step slow, trying not to make noise. My mind kept replaying the message. He won't tell the truth. Will you? The words dug into my head, like they were aimed at me in a way I didn't understand. The living room was empty, but something was off. One of the couch pillows was on the floor, lying at an odd angle. We never left it like that. I walked farther in, feeling that same pressure in the room I felt in the hallway, like someone had been standing there just a few seconds before I arrived. The balcony door. It was locked, but not fully shut. The latch was barely hanging on, as if someone closed it in a hurry. My chest tightened. I forced myself to step closer, pushing the door all the way until it clicked. As I did, I spotted something outside, right near the railing. A piece of black fabric stuck on the metal, fluttering lightly in the breeze. Like someone's hoodie had brushed against it while climbing over. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I yanked it out with shaky hands. A text from an unknown number, different from the one on Liam's phone. Just 2 words. He lied. Before I could reply, another message came through. You're next. My mouth went dry. I looked around the room, trying to see any place someone could hide, any shadow that looked too still. My heart was racing so fast it hurt. Someone had been inside the apartment. Someone knew I was alone. And whatever this was, it wasn't random. Liam hadn't just left. He'd been taken. Or worse, he'd run from someone who now expected me to clean up the mess he left behind. I backed away from the balcony door, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers hurt. My mind kept trying to make sense of everything. Why Liam left his phone, why the window was open, why someone would come into our apartment, but nothing fit together. The air in the room felt colder now, heavier, like I wasn't alone even though I couldn't see anyone. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Turn around. My whole body went stiff. I didn't want to. I didn't want to confirm what that message implied. But my nerves took over before my brain could stop me. I turned slowly toward the hallway. A shadow moved. Not fast. Just enough for me to know someone was there. The hallway light flickered, and for a second, I saw the outline of a person standing near Liam's door, tall, hood pulled up, face hidden. They didn't rush me. They didn't shout. They just watched me, their posture unnervingly calm, like they'd been waiting for the exact moment I realized I was trapped. My throat tightened. "Where's Liam?" The figure lifted a hand. Not threatening, almost polite. Then they pointed to the floor, right beside their feet. Something small slid forward across the wooden hallway, pushed by their shoe. I felt my breath catch in my chest. Another message came through. He should have told the truth when he had the chance. I swallowed hard. What truth? What did he do? The figure tilted their head, like the question annoyed them. Then they stepped forward, slow and steady, closing the distance inch by inch. I stumbled back until my shoulder hit the wall. The figure reached into their pocket, and for a moment, I thought they were pulling out a weapon. But instead, they took out my phone. I didn't understand until they spoke, their voice low and controlled. "You think we don't know who helped him?" My stomach flipped. They weren't after Liam. They were after both of us. And whatever lie he told, he made sure I'd be the one left standing when they came looking for the truth. The moment I realized they had my phone, something inside me cracked. I didn't know if it was fear or anger, but it made my legs move before my mind caught up. I darted sideways into the kitchen, nearly slipping on the tile. The figure lunged after me, their footsteps sharp and steady, not rushed, like they knew exactly how this would play out. I grabbed the first thing I could reach, a heavy ceramic mug, and hurled it toward the doorway. It smashed against the wall, missing them by inches, but it bought me just enough time to shove the back door open and sprint outside. The cold night air hit my face hard. I jumped the steps, ran across the small patch of grass, and didn't stop until I reached the alley behind our building. Every sound felt like a threat. The rustle of leaves, a car passing nearby, my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. I kept checking over my shoulder, expecting to see that hooded shape right behind me, but the alley stayed empty. I didn't go back home. Not that night. I walked for almost an hour, sticking to well-lit streets, keeping close to groups of strangers. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone I'd taken from Liam's room. When I finally stopped long enough to breathe, I checked it again. One new message, sent just minutes earlier. "Running won't fix what he did." I stared at the screen, feeling my stomach drop, because it didn't say he. It said you. Like whoever was chasing us had decided the blame belonged to me now. I never saw Liam again after that night. No calls, no texts, nothing. The apartment felt empty, but the memory of someone being inside it, watching, moving around like they owned the place, never left me. Even now, I can't walk down a hallway without thinking about that shadow, without imagining someone standing just out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment to step forward. I replay that night constantly, wondering what truth they wanted, what lie Liam told, and why they made me the one left to feel the consequences. It's maddening because part of me still doesn't know if Liam ran, if he hid, or if he ever really had a chance. And the part that terrifies me most is that whoever it was, they were patient, methodical. They didn't need to chase me through the streets. They didn't need to shout or threaten. They just let me know they were in control, and that was enough to break me. Sometimes I catch myself checking doors, locks, even windows that are already shut. I keep my phone close, but the fear doesn't fade. I've learned that danger doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers slowly, deliberately, until you realize the person you trusted, or thought you could trust, wasn't on your side at all. And the worst part, I still don't know who sent those messages, who decided I should pay for someone else's lie. Some nights, when everything is quiet, I wonder if they're still watching, still waiting for the moment they can make me confront the truth I'll never understand. Because in the end, some horrors don't end. They just linger, quiet, patient, and impossible to escape. I still don't know why I agreed to walk home that night. The Halloween crowd had already died down, and the neighborhood looked almost abandoned, decorations hanging limp, smashed pumpkins drying on the sidewalks, porch lights clicking off one by one. The air felt heavy, colder than it should have been, like the whole street was warning me to turn around. But I kept going, telling myself it was just another quiet night. Halfway down the block, I noticed a car parked across the street. A dark sedan I'd never seen before. It wasn't strange for cars to be there, but something about this one bothered me. The windows were too black, almost reflective, and the engine made this low hum. like it was idling even though there were no lights on. I tried not to stare, but my eyes kept drifting back to it. I wasn't scared yet, just uneasy. That feeling you get when you know something is slightly off but can't explain why. I picked up my pace, pulling my jacket tighter as the wind brushed past. It wasn't until I reached the corner that my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Why are you walking alone? My stomach tightened. I didn't reply. I didn't breathe for a second. I just looked around, trying to see who could have sent it. The street was empty. The car across the road was still there, engine humming quietly. Another message came seconds later. Don't pretend you don't see me. The hairs on my arms lifted. I turned slowly toward the sedan. The tinted window on the driver's side shifted, barely but enough. Someone was inside, watching, waiting for me to react. And for the first time that night, I felt something deeper than fear. I felt recognized, like whoever was in that car knew me, and had been waiting for this exact moment. I froze, my hand tightening around my phone. The messages didn't stop. They came one after another, short, deliberate. Keep walking. Don't stop. You won't make it home if you pause. My pulse jumped. I wanted to run, but something inside me hesitated. Running felt like giving them satisfaction, like proving they had control. So I started walking faster instead, keeping my eyes on the cracked sidewalk and ignoring the car's reflection in the windows of nearby houses. But I could feel it, even through the tinted glass. They were following me. Every few steps, the hum of the engine would change slightly, as if someone was adjusting it just to make me notice. And then, a shadow moved inside the car. Someone leaned over, and for a fraction of a second, I saw the edge of a face. I didn't recognize them, but the way they moved, it was precise, deliberate, like they knew exactly how to push me. I tried calling a friend, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. I kept glancing over my shoulder, but the street behind me was empty. No one was walking. No other cars. Nothing. Just me and that silent sedan following patient. I reached the alley shortcut I sometimes took when I wanted to get home faster. Normally it was empty at night, but this time, the darkness felt different, thicker, heavier. I stepped into it, hoping the car would pass me by. But the moment I did, the headlights flicked on, bathing the alley in bright white light. My heart jumped into my throat. They stopped the car just a few feet behind me. The doors didn't open. No one came out. They didn't have to. The threat was already there, in the air, in the way the engine idled, in the messages buzzing on my phone. You can't hide. You never could. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My mind raced. Whoever this was, they knew me, knew my routines, knew the streets I'd take. I wasn't just being followed, I was being hunted. And then I noticed something else, a small sticker on the back of the sedan's windshield. The same sticker that Liam, my neighbor, used to have on his old car. My stomach dropped. This wasn't random. Someone close to me was involved. Someone I trusted. And now I was trapped. I didn't know how long I was running. My legs felt heavy, my throat burned, and every desperate breath tasted like metal. The deeper I went into those woods, the more the world around me seemed to collapse into this single, suffocating moment. I kept hearing footsteps, sometimes behind me, sometimes beside me, as if the forest itself had grown ears and feet just to chase me. At one point, I stopped. Not because I wanted to, but because my body finally refused to move. I leaned against a tree, squeezing my eyes shut, hoping, praying, that when I opened them, everything would make sense again. It didn't, because when I opened them, I saw her, standing between the trees, motionless, only a few feet ahead of me. The same woman from the abandoned campsite. Only now, I could see her face clearly, and there was something horribly wrong with it. Her skin didn't look like skin. It looked stretched, pulled too tightly, like someone tried to mold a human expression onto something that wasn't human. Her eyes were wide, like she was mimicking the idea of fear, but didn't actually understand it. And she wasn't alone. From behind her, two more figures stepped out. Slow, calm. Their faces also didn't look right, expressions frozen in some unsettling imitation of what humans are supposed to look like. They weren't chasing. They weren't even trying to hide. They were simply watching me, tilting their heads like they were trying to figure me out, like I was the strange one. I tried to speak, but all that came out was a broken whisper, one unnatural foot at a time, and with every step she took, her head twitched, like she was trying to replay the movement until she got it right. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My body simply shut down, trapped in this paralyzing silence. Then she raised her hand and pointed, not at me, behind me. I turned slowly, and I swear my heart stopped. My cousin was standing there, but his face, his expression was wrong too. Unnaturally stiff, like someone else was wearing him. And when he spoke, his voice wasn't his. "You shouldn't have come here." Everything inside me shattered. I bolted before my brain could catch up. Every step I took through the forest felt like it was dragging me backward, like the shadows themselves were trying to hold me there. Twigs snapped underfoot, leaves scratched my face and arms, but I didn't care. I didn't look back. Not once. I stumbled into the clearing near the main road, gasping, chest burning, my legs shaking so badly I could barely stand. The streetlights were a relief, weak, artificial, but real. People were out, cars, walkers, some late-night deliveries. I ran straight into them, barely avoiding a car, not even explaining myself. I couldn't. I was shaking too much to speak, and even if I had, I don't think anyone would have understood. When I finally reached my apartment building, I locked every door, every window. I checked the security cameras over and over, replaying the feed, trying to see if any of them had followed me. Nothing. No figures, no shadows, just empty streets. But the unease didn't leave. It clung to me, filling every corner of the apartment. I kept replaying the faces in my head, the woman, the two figures, my cousin. Their movements, their expressions, the way they didn't need to chase me to terrify me. And the truth I couldn't shake. Someone I trusted, someone I had invited into my life, had helped set this up. Even with doors locked and lights on, the fear never fully went away. Sometimes, when everything is quiet, I swear I can hear a soft shuffle outside my window. Like they're still there, watching, waiting. And deep down, I know it's only a matter of time before the shadows remember me again. I've tried to convince myself it's over, that they only wanted to scare me, or mark me, or warn me. But every time I say that out loud, it feels like I'm lying to myself. Because the truth is, I don't know what they wanted. I don't know why they stopped. I don't know why they let me run. And that uncertainty is its own kind of torture. I cut my cousin out of my life completely. Blocked him. Deleted every picture with him. But what frightens me most is how casually he betrayed me. How easily he handed me over to whatever group that was. No hesitation. No guilt. Just silence, like he had already accepted whatever they were planning to do to me. Sometimes I wonder if this wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. And sometimes I wonder if I was supposed to be more than just a target. Maybe I was supposed to become one of them. I haven't been back to the forest. I won't ever go again, not even in daylight. Every morning, before I leave my apartment, I check the hallway twice. I check the parking lot from my window. I check the peephole even when no one knocks. Trauma rewires you in ways you can't undo. But the part that bothers me the most, the part one can't forget, is that they didn't chase me. They didn't run after me. They didn't need to. They watched me go, like they already knew where I lived. Like they knew they'd see me again. I didn't expect anyone to be at the cabin that night. We had rented it for a quiet Halloween weekend, away from the crowds, and the last thing I imagined was that we'd feel unsafe. But from the moment we drove down the narrow dirt road, I had this nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, like the woods were watching us. The trees were bare, skeletal, their branches scraping the sides of the car with every gust of wind. It was late afternoon when we finally arrived. The cabin looked perfect in the fading light, cozy, warm, isolated. But as soon as we stepped out of the car, the air felt wrong. The kind of wrong that doesn't make a sound, doesn't have a shape, but somehow presses on your chest. I shrugged it off, telling myself it was just the exhaustion of the drive, just the nerves of being somewhere new. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of mildew, and the floor creaked under our feet. We unpacked quickly, laughing to break the tension, joking about how spooky it already felt. But then I noticed the door to the basement. It was closed, but not fully. The latch had been turned, not enough to lock it, just enough to keep it slightly ajar. I asked my friend Emma if she'd gone down there. She said no. No one had. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe the wind had moved it. Maybe it was a quirk of old buildings. But as the night fell and the shadows stretched across the walls, I kept hearing a faint sound, soft, dragging footsteps coming from below, the kind that don't belong to anyone in the room. By the time we were settling in for the night, I realized I wasn't just uncomfortable. I was terrified. Someone, or something, was already in the cabin, and I didn't know if we were safe enough to leave. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, the old floorboards settling, or maybe a raccoon outside. But every time I glanced at the basement door, my stomach twisted. The faint dragging sound had started again, slower this time, deliberate. Like someone, or something, was testing the boundaries, seeing how far they could go without being noticed. Emma was in the kitchen, unpacking snacks, humming softly. I wanted to tell her, to say something about the basement door, about the noises, but my voice felt stuck. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that nothing was wrong, that it was just a story waiting to happen. But the hair on the back of my neck kept standing up, and every instinct screamed that we weren't alone. I went to the window to look outside. The woods stretched endlessly in every direction, black and silent. No cars, no houses, nothing, just the whispering wind. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out, no messages. No calls. Just that heavy, hollow feeling in my chest that something was already inside with us. Then I heard it again, the dragging. Slower, closer. From right below us. I stepped toward the basement, my foot pressing lightly on the wooden floor. The sound stopped instantly. My pulse jumped. I froze, realizing the house was now too quiet. Not the quiet of empty space, but the quiet of someone watching. Emma called my name. I turned. She smiled, but there was a tension in her eyes I hadn't noticed before. "What is it?" she asked. I shook my head, telling her nothing, but inside I felt panic spreading like fire. A soft creak from the basement made me jump. I didn't see anyone, but I knew, just knew, that whoever it was, they had been inside the house while we unpacked. They had been watching, learning, waiting. I backed away slowly, every muscle tight. Then a shadow flickered at the top of the basement stairs, barely visible, and I froze. The dragging sound began again, this time followed by a low thump, as if someone was testing the floor, testing us, seeing how far they could go before we noticed. I realized then that getting scared wasn't enough. That weekend wasn't about fun or isolation. It was about survival. I didn't know how long I stood there, staring at the basement door, my body frozen. The dragging had stopped, but the silence felt heavier than ever. Emma was beside me, too tense to speak. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but the front door was too far, and I was paralyzed by the thought that whoever, or whatever, was in the house could intercept us before we got there. Then it came, a soft, deliberate whisper. "Don't move." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a sound. It was precise, calculated, and it carried knowledge. Knowledge that we had done nothing but step into a place we thought was safe. The whisper came again, closer, right beneath the floorboards. My foot instinctively tapped the floor, and the response was immediate. A creak directly under me, a slow shuffle, as if someone had mirrored my movements without making a sound I could locate. I tried to call out, but my voice cracked before the words came. Emma grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. I realized then that the basement door was moving, swinging open slowly, though no one had touched it. And standing at the top of the stairs was a figure, motionless, dark against the dim light of the cabin. I could see only the outline at first, but the posture, the way the shoulders held tension, it was familiar. Too familiar. Someone I knew, or thought I knew, had been part of this. Suddenly the figure moved, just a step, and the basement lights flickered on. Shadows danced against the walls, but the thing, or person, at the top of the stairs didn't appear human anymore. It leaned forward unnaturally, tilting its head, its gaze fixed on us with an intent that felt almost personal. Emma screamed, and the sound triggered movement behind us. Another figure emerged from the kitchen doorway, and then another, circling slowly, cutting off every escape. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would burst. The room felt smaller with every second, the walls closing in. I realized with a sinking certainty that whoever, or whatever, was in that cabin had planned this. They had watched us arrive, studied us, and now they had cabin that night. We had rented it for a quiet Halloween weekend, away from the crowds, and the last thing I imagined was that we'd feel unsafe. But from the moment we drove down the narrow dirt road, I had this nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, like the woods were watching us. The trees were bare, skeletal, their branches scraping the sides of the car with every gust of wind. It was late afternoon when we finally arrived. The cabin looked perfect in the fading light, cozy, warm, isolated. But as soon as we stepped out of the car, the air felt wrong. The kind of wrong that doesn't make a sound, doesn't have a shape, but somehow presses on your chest. I shrugged it off, telling myself it was just the exhaustion of the drive, just the nerves of being somewhere new. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of mildew, and the floor creaked under our feet. We unpacked quickly, laughing to break the tension, joking about how spooky it already felt. But then I noticed the door to the basement. It was closed, but not fully. The latch had been turned, not enough to lock it, just enough to keep it slightly ajar. I asked my friend Emma if she'd gone down there. She said no. No one had. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe the wind had moved it. Maybe it was a quirk of old buildings. But as the night fell and the shadows stretched across the walls, I kept hearing a faint sound, soft, dragging footsteps coming from below, the kind that don't belong to anyone in the room. By the time we were settling in for the night, I realized I wasn't just uncomfortable. I was terrified. Someone, or something, was already in the cabin, and I didn't know if we were safe enough to leave. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, the old floorboards settling, or maybe a raccoon outside. But every time I glanced at the basement door, my stomach twisted. The faint dragging sound had started again, slower this time, deliberate, like someone, or something, was testing the boundaries, seeing how far they could go without being noticed. Emma was in the kitchen, unpacking snacks, humming softly. I wanted to tell her, to say something about the basement door, about the noises, but my voice felt stuck. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that nothing was wrong, that it was just a story waiting to happen. But the hair on the back of my neck kept standing up, and every instinct screamed that we weren't alone. I went to the window to look outside. The woods stretched endlessly in every direction, black and silent. No cars, no houses, nothing, just the whispering wind. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out, no messages. No calls, just that heavy, hollow feeling in my chest that something was already inside with us. Then I heard it again, the dragging. Slower, closer. From right below us. I stepped toward the basement, my foot pressing lightly on the wooden floor. The sound stopped instantly. My pulse jumped. I froze, realizing the house was now too quiet. Not the quiet of empty space, but the quiet of someone watching. Emma called my name. I turned. She smiled, but there was a tension in her eyes I hadn't noticed before. "What is it?" she asked. I shook my head, telling her nothing, but inside I felt panic spreading like fire. A soft creak from the basement made me jump. I didn't see anyone, but I knew, just knew, that whoever it was, they had been inside the house while we unpacked. They had been watching, learning, waiting. I backed away slowly, every muscle tight. Then a shadow flickered at the top of the basement stairs, barely visible, and I froze. The dragging sound began again, this time followed by a low thump, as if someone was testing the floor, testing us, seeing how far they could go before we noticed. I realized then that getting scared wasn't enough. That weekend wasn't about fun or isolation. It was about survival. I didn't know how long I stood there, staring at the basement door, my body frozen. The dragging had stopped, but the silence felt heavier than ever. Emma was beside me, too tense to speak. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but the front door was too far, and I was paralyzed by the thought that whoever, or whatever, was in the house could intercept us before we got there. Then it came, a soft, deliberate whisper. "Don't move." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a sound. It was precise, calculated, and it carried knowledge. Knowledge that we had done nothing but step into a place we thought was safe. The whisper came again, closer, right beneath the floorboards. My foot instinctively tapped the floor, and the response was immediate. A creak directly under me, a slow shuffle, as if someone had mirrored my movements without making a sound I could locate. I tried to call out, but my voice cracked before the words came. Emma grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. I realized then that the basement door was moving, swinging open slowly, though no one had touched it. And standing at the top of the stairs was a figure, motionless, dark against the dim light of the cabin. I could see only the outline at first, but the posture, the way the shoulders held tension, it was familiar. Too familiar. Someone I knew, or thought I knew, had been part of this. Suddenly the figure moved, just a step, and the basement lights flickered on. Shadows danced against the walls, but the thing, or person, at the top of the stairs didn't appear human anymore. It leaned forward unnaturally, tilting its head, its gaze fixed on us with an intent that felt almost personal. Emma screamed, and the sound triggered movement behind us. Another figure emerged from the kitchen doorway, and then another, circling slowly, cutting off every escape. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would burst. The room felt smaller with every second, the walls closing in. I realized with a sinking certainty that whoever, or whatever, was in that cabin had planned this. They had watched us arrive, studied us, and now they had trapped us. The first time I noticed something was wrong, I was waiting in my car outside the apartment. It was late, Halloween night, and the streets were nearly empty, except for the occasional trick-or-treater rushing from house to house. I wasn't supposed to be there, not really. I had promised my friend I'd pick up her younger brother from a party. She couldn't leave early. But the moment I got out of the car, I felt eyes on me. At first, I thought it was just the streetlights casting shadows, or maybe a reflection from one of the darkened windows. But the feeling didn't go away. It pressed on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Something, or someone, was watching, and it wasn't distant. It was close. Too close. I brushed it off and honked, waiting for the boy to come out. The party house was at the end of the block, and I could see lights and movement inside. People laughing, doors opening, music spilling out. I told myself everything was normal. I just needed to pick him up and leave. But when the door opened, no one came out. Only the faint sound of footsteps moving toward my car. I froze. A shadow crossed the sidewalk behind me. I could see the outline of a person, tall, moving slowly, deliberately, as if testing whether I noticed. My hand instinctively went to the door handle, and that's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. You shouldn't be here. Leave now. My chest tightened. I told myself it was a prank, a Halloween joke, but the shadow didn't disappear. And the footsteps didn't stop. I wasn't supposed to stay. I wasn't supposed to notice. And yet I did. I tried to convince myself it was just a kid messing around, a stupid Halloween prank. But every instinct in my body screamed that this wasn't normal. The shadow stayed on the sidewalk, just at the edge of the streetlight, shifting slightly whenever I blinked. My grip on the car door tightened. I unlocked the door and leaned forward, trying to see more clearly. The street was empty, no one else around, no one coming out of the party house. But the footsteps behind me were soft, careful, almost mocking, always just behind the point where I could look. I wanted to drive away, to slam the car in reverse and leave, but I had promised my friend I'd be responsible. The phone buzzed again. You can't leave. Not yet. I froze. My eyes darted toward the shadow. This time it moved closer, just a step, and I realized something that made my stomach drop. The movement wasn't rushed. It was controlled, calculated. Whoever, or whatever, was there wasn't trying to scare me. They were testing me, watching how I reacted. I called my friend, trying to keep my voice calm, but the call went straight to voicemail. I left a message. I'm outside, I'll wait. My fingers shook, and the sound of my own voice made me feel more exposed than the shadow itself. Then I noticed something I hadn't before, a note taped to the windshield. A single piece of paper, white against the dark glass. I grabbed it, hands trembling. In messy handwriting it said, "He isn't coming, but you are here. You know too much." I dropped the note, stomach twisting. My mind raced. Who? What? Why me? I looked around frantically, trying to see anyone else on the street, but the light seemed to stretch the shadows longer, hiding everything that might be moving. The footsteps were closer now. Not fast, but purposeful. I tried to start the car, fumbling with the keys, my hands slick with sweat. But before I could, a figure appeared in the corner of my eye, standing just behind my car, tall, still, and unflinching. And I realized then that it wasn't just one person. Someone had planned this, and I was the only one caught in it. The moment I started the engine, I felt it, a presence right beside the car, almost pressing against the metal. I couldn't see clearly, but I knew someone was there. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the keys. The shadow moved with me as I shifted into drive, keeping pace with the car, silent, deliberate, just a step behind. I tried to drive slowly at first, hoping if I stayed calm, they would leave. But the moment I rolled forward, the footsteps picked up, not running, but quick enough to match the speed of my car as I turned onto the main road. My heart felt like it was going to explode. Every red light, every stop sign became a trap in my mind. Every darkened corner, a hiding place for them to appear. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You can't escape. He trusts no one. Neither should you. The words made my stomach drop. My mind went blank. Who? Who are they talking about? And why was I being warned? I glanced in the rearview mirror and froze. The figure was no longer just behind the car. They were sitting in the passenger seat, or at least it looked like it. Their face was hidden in shadows, body unnervingly still. I swerved, nearly hitting the curb, and the figure didn't react. It didn't move. It just sat there, as if it had always been inside. I slammed on the brakes, heart hammering, and that's when I realized the worst part. The figure wasn't a stranger. I could feel familiarity in their presence, in the way they leaned, in the rhythm of their breathing, or what I imagined as breathing. Someone I knew, or thought I knew, had brought them here. And in that instant, I understood. The danger wasn't just the figure itself. It was betrayal. The person I trusted had completely exposed. I didn't stop driving, even though every nerve in my body screamed for me to. I didn't look at the figure again. I just pressed the gas, weaving through the empty streets, lights flashing across the windshield. Every turn, every intersection felt like a decision that could mean life or death. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't check it. I didn't dare. When I finally reached a well-lit gas station, I jumped out of the car, fumbling to lock the doors behind me. The place was empty, quiet, almost too quiet. I scanned the parking lot, expecting to see that shadow emerge from the dark, following me, but there was nothing. Just the hum of the gas pumps and the flickering neon lights. I stayed there for nearly an hour, parked under the lights, phone in hand, calling my friend over and over, leaving frantic messages. No answer. Not a single reply. I felt sick, my chest tight, stomach twisting with every second that passed. Whoever had planned this knew exactly how to corner me, exactly when I would panic. By the time I finally returned home, the streets were empty, silent. I double-checked every lock, every window, every door. Even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside the car, sitting silently, watching, waiting. I realized that night that betrayal isn't always obvious. Sometimes it wears a familiar face. Sometimes it doesn't even need to speak to control you. And sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who set the stage for the worst moments of your life. I never found out who sent those messages, who had followed me, or who had orchestrated it all. My friend never returned my calls, and the boy I was supposed to pick up never appeared in my life again. It was as if that night had erased everything I thought I knew, leaving only fear and confusion in its place. Even now, months later, I can't drive down that street without my heart hammering. Every time a shadow moves near my car, every time I hear footsteps behind me, I flinch. I still double-check my locks, keep my phone close, and avoid walking alone at night. The betrayal I felt isn't just about someone's actions. It's about the realization that danger can come from people you trust, people you'd never suspect. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I had ignored the messages, if I had walked away without stopping. Would it have been over? Or would they have found me anyway, patiently waiting, like they always do? I don't know, and I don't want to know. The thing I learned that night is simple and terrifying. Safety is never guaranteed, and the people you trust can turn into the very source of your fear. The quiet moments, the small, ordinary actions, those are the ones you have to watch. Because the worst horrors aren't always loud or obvious. Sometimes they're subtle, deliberate, and waiting in the shadows for the exact moment you let your guard down. And once they do, there's no going back. I remember the cold hitting my face first. It wasn't just the air, it was the way the forest seemed to suck the warmth out of everything. I was with my brother Jake and two of his friends, Lucas and Mia. We'd decided to camp near an old, abandoned logging site in northern Washington. No trails, no maps, just a spot Jake had read about online. The first few hours were normal. We set up the tents, started a small fire, and joked about the long hike we'd taken. But as the sun dipped behind the trees, everything changed. The usual forest noises faded. Birds stopped singing, the wind almost disappeared, and even the creaking of branches seemed intentional. I noticed at first, a flicker of movement at the edge of the clearing. Something, or someone watching us. I pointed it out to the others. Jake laughed it off, Lucas said it was probably a deer, and Mia tried to ignore it. But the feeling didn't go away. It was like being observed by something patient, deliberate, waiting for us to make a mistake. Then came the sound. A soft tapping, metallic, irregular. Not close, not far, just beyond the firelight. Tap, tap, tap. It echoed through the clearing, bouncing off the trees, pressing into my chest. I froze. Lucas tried to brush it off, but even his voice trembled. By nightfall, the air was thick with tension. Every shadow looked alive, every rustle of leaves felt like someone moving deliberately closer. The forest wasn't just quiet, it was aware. And that night, I realized we weren't just campers. We were intruders in a place that didn't want witnesses. We tried to ignore it at first. Lucas joked about ghosts, Mia laughed nervously, and Jake kept checking the tree line, as if daring whatever it was to show itself. But the tapping didn't stop. Tap, tap, tap. Every few seconds, soft but deliberate, coming from different directions. It wasn't random. Someone, or something, was moving around the clearing, testing us, marking us. I noticed something else. The dirt near the edge of the clearing was disturbed. Small, deep impressions like someone had been pacing in a circle. Not ours. Not animal tracks. Whoever, or whatever, was out there was circling us, watching our every move. As night deepened, tension turned to paranoia. Jake wouldn't let us go to our tents alone. Every trip to fetch firewood or water felt like walking through a gauntlet. Mia refused to move beyond the firelight. Lucas kept muttering that he felt eyes on him, that someone was watching even from the dark. Then we heard it, a low whistle, careful and deliberate, like someone imitating the wind, but sharper, more human. We all froze. The tapping started again, now accompanied by the faint crunch of footsteps over the dry forest floor. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but we couldn't move without knowing the direction it was coming from. Around midnight, I saw a shadow move between the trees, just beyond the firelight. Pale, tall, and deliberate. In its hand, something metallic caught the firelight, a pipe, or maybe a hatchet. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound was slow, measured, echoing through the fog and trees. Fear had taken over. I could feel it in my chest, in my stomach, in every part of me. We weren't just uncomfortable anymore, we were being hunted. And whatever it was patient, calculating, and closer than we realized. We huddled together near the fire, hearts pounding so hard I thought we'd all hear them in the silence of the forest. The shadow was close now, just beyond the circle of light. It didn't rush or make noise except for the slow metallic tapping, tap, 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 against something we couldn't see. Each sound pressed into my chest, made my stomach twist, made my legs shake. Jake whispered for us to stay calm, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Lucas grabbed a branch, holding it like a weapon, but his hands were trembling uncontrollably. Mia clung to me, shaking, whispering that we needed to leave, that it was right there, watching. Then the tapping stopped. Silence fell so heavy it pressed against our ears. And in that moment, I saw it. A figure stepping between two trees, tall and pale, glinting metal in its hand. Its movements were slow, deliberate, and patient. Every instinct screamed to run, but I couldn't. My body felt frozen. Suddenly, the figure shifted slightly, disappearing behind a tree, and we ran. Branches whipped our faces, mud pulled at our boots, every step making our fear worse. Behind us, the tapping returned, closer now, rhythmic, relentless, echoing through the lungs burning, arms scratched, clothes torn. But when we tried the ignition, the keys were gone. Whoever, or whatever, had been following us had been closer than we realized. I glanced back into the fog, and for a split second, I thought I saw it, standing silently at the edge of the clearing, watching us escape before melting into the darkness. We piled into the car, slamming the doors shut and locking them, hearts hammering so hard it felt like they might burst. Mud and scratches coated our arms and faces. Mia kept shaking, whispering that it was still out there, and Lucas sat frozen, staring into the fog beyond the headlights. Jake tried to start the car, hands trembling, and I kept glancing at the tree line, expecting the shadow to appear at any moment. When the engine finally roared to life, we didn't look back. The fog swallowed the trail, hiding every footprint, every sign of what had been following us. When we finally reached the main road and saw the first passing car, it felt like salvation. The driver barely noticed us, and we didn't speak until we were far away, the forest behind us silent, patient, and untouched. The authorities searched the campsite for days. They found our scattered gear, the trampled ground, even some broken branches near the tents, but no footprints, no sign of the figure, nothing that could explain what we'd experienced. Police suggested hallucinations, stress, maybe even a prank by locals. But we knew the truth. We had been hunted, watched, and tested by something deliberate and intelligent, something that wanted to see us terrified. None of us returned. Jake refuses to hike, Lucas avoids forests entirely, and Mia won't even walk past wooded areas without panic setting in. And me? I can't drive near the woods without my chest tightening, my skin crawling, and that soft, deliberate tapping echoing in my mind. Whatever was out there, it hasn't left. Even now, years later, I can still feel it. The memory of that night is a weight that never lifts. The shadow, the metallic tapping, the way it moved silently, deliberately, watching us with patience, I can't forget it. Jake, Lucas, and Mia rarely talk about it, and I don't blame them. Some things are too heavy to put into words. But I remember every second. The fear, the helplessness, the sense that we were being hunted. We were lucky to make it out, or maybe it simply chose to let us leave. Why it did, I'll never know. The forest teaches you something cruel. Being alone doesn't mean safety. It can hide, watch, and wait. It can study your fear, measure your reactions, and let panic grow until it's unbearable. Every snapped twig, every rustle of leaves, every faint metallic click reminds me that it's still out there, waiting for the next person foolish enough to think the woods are empty. Sometimes, when it's quiet at night, I swear I hear that same soft tapping somewhere near my apartment. A railing, a pipe, even the streetlight outside. For a moment, I feel the forest all over again, the shadow watching, patient, deliberate. I know the truth now. The woods don't forget. And whatever was out there that night doesn't either. Every shadow, every sound, every metallic tap is a reminder that someone, or something, is always watching.